You're listening to Vince and Matt on the Montreal Marketeers podcast. You guys are listening to the Montreal Marketeers, Matt and Vince, and we're at the Pierre-Paul store, location in Vaudreuil. There's a second location in Pointe-Claire, and we're here with the owner, Pierre-Paul. Pierre, how's everything going?
Good. How about you?
Good. Can't complain. Matt, you doing well?
Holding in there, Vince. Holding in there.
Anyways, we want to get to the first question I have for you is basically, how did Pierre-Paul store come about? The name, what's the history behind it? Because I know there's a lot of history behind this store and this brand.
Yeah, so originally my grandfather started the store in 1948. Prior to that, he worked for Omer Dessert. Now, everybody knows Omer Dessert as the art store. Back then, he used to as a general store. So he was in charge of selling guns and ammo to the Canadian Army at that point. And somebody at that time had told him, if you want to start your own business, I'll help you out. And eventually in 1948, that's what he decided. So he decided, you know
was
what?
Was it a friend or just someone that...
It was a customer there that just said, you know, you're a smart guy, you're a young guy, you got kids. If ever you want to throw yourself out there and start a business, we will help you out. So he did that, and he started selling bicycles, hockey equipment, hunting rifles. He would rent them. He would rent bicycles for 25 cents a day or 25 cents an hour, something really low. I've seen pictures of the store. It was in Montreal back then too, so it was on Adams Street, so it wasn't in the West Island. There was over 100 bikes up for rental in front of the store, all on the sidewalk, so they take those in and out every day.
Wow.
Yeah, so in the 50s, he was ready to move the family from Montreal to the West Island. And this is a pretty funny story because he drove down, you've seen the Pointe-Claire store.
Yes.
So he drove down on Cartier when everything was still under construction, put my grandmother and the kids in the car. He saw this big building that was getting built. He took some measurements and he told my grandmother, the house is gonna have to wait, we're gonna do another store. So he opened a second store in Pointe-Claire and moved the family the year after instead. And the 50s being the 50s, having a store in Montreal, having a store in Pointe-Claire was a little bit more difficult at the time. So he decided to just close the store in Montreal and just have the store in Pointe-Claire. And that store has moved in the village 3 times. So for those who know the village, Kiva, which is a women's clothing, we used to be there. That was the original store in Pointe-Claire. And then we moved to the optician store, and then we're in the current location. And my dad took over a little bit late, well, quite a bit later. My dad grew up in the store, fixing bikes, fixing stuff. At that point, they weren't selling guns anymore. They were selling bikes, toys, and hockey equipment.
And toys.
Toys was a thing back then. So bike stores apparently sold toys. And it was not a weird thing. It was like a very normal thing. So I had the same reaction. I don't know where the toys came from, but we're selling toys at that point. And my dad took it over at a later time when my grandfather was ready to retire. And my dad did bikes at one point. He did cross-country skis, not for too long. He did fitness equipment. He did all sorts of stuff. So that's why for a long time it wasn't just, my grandfather saw it was Paul Schiltz, then it was Paul Cycle and Sports. And then when I took it over, it had already been an established bike shop, only bikes for the last 20 years. So I took the sports out and I just said Pierre-Paul. And I took it over from my dad in 2013. And we opened this year in April our second store in Vaudreuil.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And what got you into cycling? Like why bikes? Why not, skis? Snowboarding, anything else?
Well, that's a different question. So we'll start with what got me into cycling. I grew up in the industry. It's the only job I ever had. It's the first job I had. I grew up at the bike store. It was very natural for me to follow my father's footsteps. I like the sport. I like the industry. If you want to ski, you can't sell skis because you're going to be busy in the winter. So I don't sell skis because I enjoy to ski. I still managed to squeeze in.
You guys actually have events at Enrico, I think.
We have a fat bike. We did a fat bike demo, I think a week or two ago at Rico. We have a fat bike ride coming up this Sunday in Oka. So obviously we don't organize ski events, we don't sell skis, but we try to organize fat bike events and all that stuff. And I do ride quite a bit in the summer. I've never been really good at tracking my miles. I'm trying that this year, so that's new. Started that this year. So yeah.
And for those that don't know what a fat bike is, what is a fat bike? What's its purpose?
So a fat bike is a bike that was originally designed to ride on the beach. It's got tires that are 4 to 5 inches wide, and quickly people realized that they were very capable in the snow. So people think that they're going to have a lot of rolling resistance, but they don't. If the snow conditions are favorable, it's a bike that will ride like any mountain bike, but it won't sink in the snow. So
what's favorable? What's the ideal weather to do this?
What's the ideal weather? It's going to sound bad, but if it didn't snow in a few days and the trails are packed, and if it's cold.
Okay.
So, it's supposed to be 2 to 3 degrees this weekend, which is probably really good for skiing. Probably not as great for fat biking because the trails are going to get really soft. So that cold spell we had during the holidays that everybody was freaking out about.
That's time for you.
It was perfect. It was perfect. It was hard to do more than a full hour because it was really cold, but the snow being super crisp, everything being super hard, the ice being super thick and hard, there's less rolling resistance. It's a lot easier.
So when you're as a bicycle shop, most people see it as seasonal, right? Summer bicycle.
Yeah, it is very seasonal, but the fat bikes have given us an opportunity to extend the season a little bit, or at least keep the hardcore cyclists in the store a little bit longer. And what's really cool is that, our fat bike customers, it's always their second bike. So it's not always mountain bikers or fat bikers. You get the mountain bikers that are fat bikers, and you get the roadies that are fat bikers.
Okay.
So, it's just a way that people have found to extend the season. And before the holidays, it happened twice. We had families of 4 or 5 that came in, and everybody got fat bikes, because it can also be a family activity.
And do you find you have to educate people about, in the summer, do you push it, by the way, in the winter?
We don't push it as much as we talk about it. And the education we have to do is people think that they're going to be very hard to ride. They're going to be very slow, which isn't always truly the case. And also, you can use your fat bike in the summer as a mountain bike. So that's more of the education that we have to do in the summer, is that depending on the type of riding you do, that fat bike is still an option. Okay. Maybe you're a fat bike customer year round, and to have a customer like that who had road bike, mountain bike, fat bike, sold his house, moved into a condo, realized I don't have room for 3 bikes. So he sold his mountain bike, bought a suspension fork for his fat bike, and that's his year round bike. So he realizes he's slower on the mountain biking in the summer, but he enjoys one bike year round.
Okay. And do you stay true to, I guess, your grandfather's roots of renting out bikes?
The business has evolved a bunch of times. My dad didn't follow up with the rentals and all that stuff, and I even think that even when my grandfather moved the business to the West Island, we didn't do as much rental. It wasn't as big. We have a rental program, but it's more of a rental / demo. So a lot of the bikes that we sell, like the fat bikes, we understand that they're more expensive bikes, and we understand that without trying one or without experience in fat biking, it's really hard to commit $2,100 for a bike. So what we do is we have a rental, and if you decide to purchase the bike, we credit you the rental.
Okay.
So somebody who really, their true intention is to rent the bike, there's a rental program. Somebody whose true intention is to demo the bike to purchase it, well, if they decide to purchase it, it's exactly that. It's a demo.
Okay. And I just want to give everyone a bit of an idea of who you are and what you're all about, in the sense that I think your style or when you're writing, your mentality for writing is very similar to how you run your business as well, in the sense that it's a tough business, and you guys work hard 24/7, and you push through the rough times. And for you, you've had a rough experience when it comes to biking, mountain biking.
Yeah.
And I want you to kind of talk about that, because it's just interesting to me hearing that from you, and then you getting back on that bike. We always hear the story when we're kids. Well, you fall down, your parents say, get back on.
Oh, so your parents the punch over here.
Yeah.
So the parents always tell you, don't break your neck. I broke my neck. Happened 2 years ago. It was, accidents always happen when you don't think they're gonna happen, and that's exactly it. So I was mountain biking in an area that was we're going downhill, it's very steep, it's a dangerous area. So people are, oh, well, of course you broke your neck there. The reason I broke my neck is somebody had stopped and I had no choice to stop. And when we got going again, I lost balance, clipped a tree. I rolled maybe 5 feet, so I didn't have a chance to get speed. And I just went over the bars and fell funny, landed on top of my head, and that was game over. Spoke to the doctor, paramedics, and etc. I would have gone in there full speed, I probably would have walked out. So it was really the fact that there was no momentum going, and I landed right on top of my head, 6 feet lower from where I originally was. So it was a bad crash, but it was more of a weird crash than a bad crash. So for those who know, I broke the spinal process off C7. So for people who don't know, that's the pointy bit where all the muscles attach. So there's no risks of getting paralyzed, but you don't know that yet. So
you tried to drive home, I think.
Yes. So I fell, I landed on top of my head, and I didn't tell this story to most people. I knew something was broken. You feel it. I've broken collarbones, I've broken many bones before. When something pops, you know it's broken. So something popped in my back, and I knew if it wasn't broken, it was incredibly wrong. So in all my wisdom, I got back up. Everybody asked me if I was okay, and I said, yeah, just give me a second, I'm just winded out. And I caught my breath, and I told everybody, I landed on my head, I don't feel too good, so I'm just gonna take the fire road out of the trails, make it back to the truck, and if you guys can just wait for me in my truck and make sure I make it to my truck, that'd be great. So everybody's like, yeah, no problem. So they continue on the trail, I take the fire road out, I get to the truck, I put the bike in the truck, and everybody's like, are you okay? I was like, I don't know, I just feel weird. So at that time, that happened in Bromo. So at that time, my girlfriend was working as a first responder for another cycling event in that town at that time. So I called her up and she's like, how's your ride? I was like, oh, not too good. I crashed. She's like, are you okay? I was like, I don't feel very well. So I'm just gonna drive to you because I had the truck. So I drove my truck for, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes with a broken neck. By the time I got there, I was completely white. I couldn't move my head anymore. I was frozen onto the steering wheel, and Jenny's a trained paramedic, and she just looked at me and she said, what are you doing? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you're not well. You don't not feel good. You're not well. So they didn't even took me out of the truck. They slid me over to the passenger side. They did a makeshift neck brace. She drove me to Cowansville. I walked in through the front door. That's another funny story. So I walked in through the front door. Nurse sees me holding a helmet. She's like, are you okay? I was like, no. I fell on my head and my neck hurts. As soon as I said that, I was in ICU, everything, no more clothes or backboard. Doctor shows up. She's like, what's wrong with this guy? She's like, we think he's got a broken neck. She's like, well, I didn't hear an ambulance. She's like, no, he drove.
This guy drove himself in.
Yeah. So she couldn't believe it. They did the MRI. She realized it was broken. And by that time, it was Sunday night. And she's like, it's a spinal process. You're not in any danger, but I don't know what to do. I was like, okay, so what does this mean? So she's like, you're going back to Montreal. You have to book an appointment at this hospital and they have to see you. I don't know what to do. But if you go there now, you'll be stuck there all night. Just call them tomorrow morning. They'll see you right away. No problem. So call them next morning. I'm like, yeah, we'll see you on, this is Monday morning, so that happened on a Sunday. Yeah, we'll see you on Thursday. I was like, what? I'm like, yeah, we'll see you on Thursday. I was like, I got a broken neck. It's got to be somewhere in the priority list of seeing me today.
See me right away, please.
And she's like, no. It is a priority. We're treating it as a priority, so we'll see you on Thursday. So I guess their rule of thought is if you didn't need to be rushed by ambulance there, it's not that bad.
Oh my gosh.
And
our Medicare system at its best.
it cost me $19 though.
Oh,
That's what
that's
happened in the States.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been just a $19 neck brace. It would have been much much bigger ordeal. So, you know, you can knock it as much as you want. I didn't go bankrupt.
That's true. That's very true.
So, and it didn't turn out to be a major break. It just varied the spinal process, which is a big deal, but not a big deal.
But you don't know until you get it checked.
Yeah. So then, like, make the story even longer. I did a fit course, and the guy who was giving the course is a guy who's known me from before the accident, and he looked at me. He's like, "When did that accident happen?" I was like, "Oh, 2 months ago. I still have the concussion, so that's why I'm still feeling hazy." He's like, "You're not hazy, man. Your posture is all wrong." And that's when he showed me some tests that he does with certain patients, and I was like, "Wow, like I need to go see a specialist." So when we flew back to Montreal, I immediately called some friends and figured out who was the best specialist and found somebody. And yeah, it turns out that because so many muscles attached there, it's really easy for your back to be thrown off by an injury like that. So it's not so much like the break and the nerves and all that stuff, is, you know, you pick up a bunch of different postures. So when I was sitting on the bike and my hips were straight, I wanted the handlebars to be here. So when I wanted the handlebars to be straight in front of me, my hips were all crooked on the bike. So it's just, that took almost over 6 months of work, almost on a weekly basis.
Throughout this whole process, you never were scared to go back on the bike? You never...
Not at all. And even like at the hospital, waiting for the MRI result on the backboard, neck brace, girlfriend next to me, she's a paramedic, and I just looked at her, I was like, "I hope you don't think this means I'm quitting now." And she laughed, and she's like, "I know." She wasn't even surprised, and it's not like, to me, it's just like, you know, accidents happen, and that's exactly what they are. They're accidents. It doesn't mean it's going to happen again. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be a little bit safer, but, you know, you got to push through and keep on keeping on.
Now you touched on something interesting. You had mentioned that your friend who's a fit tester.
Yep.
You yourself, you're specialized in that.
Yeah.
You have the certification to fit test people. So what is a proper fit test?
What he is, he's a sports therapist, and I'm a bike fitter. So through the experience of breaking my neck, I developed a pretty good bond with him, and we actually worked together on a lot of patients. So bike fitting is the process of doing a physical evaluation, and based on that physical evaluation, fitting this person to a bicycle. It doesn't have to be a road bike. It could be a road bike, could be a mountain bike, could be a hybrid, but based on their fitness and based on their goals and based on their flexibility, based on previous injuries. So we use technology like motion capture. We use, obviously, the trainers. We have pressure mapping that we also use. And we use all of these tools to measure data, and based on everything we know about this person, their goals, their fitness level, their injuries, we make decisions on what's the best fit for them. What he does is different. So he analyzes the body, figures out where your injuries are, where your weaknesses are, and he will help you fix those. So I fix the bike, he fixes the body. And that's why we work together a lot, is that sometimes I have people who come to me for a fit because they're in pain on the bike or they want to increase performance, but I cannot fix it. He's going to fix it. And sometimes people go to him and he cannot fix it. I'm going to fix it.
Yeah, because they're riding the wrong tool, basically.
They're riding the wrong bike, so it could be riding the wrong saddle, their reach could be wrong. Obviously he can give you a bunch of exercise and stretches and do some physiotherapy with you to alleviate the pain, but we're not fixing the cause of the pain. So the bike fit's going to fix the cause of the pain. But sometimes people come to me with a specific pain and is due to an injury that they might know they have, they might not know they have, or they might not realize the impact of another injury has, and it's created another one. So I can fix some stuff, but I can't fix everything. So I can adapt the bike around you, but he can make you better.
It's crazy because I mean, that's like taking biking to the next level, in the sense that back then, years ago, when your grandfather first opened the store, you would just walk in and get a bike. Same with your dad, probably. People walk in and get a bike.
It complicates the whole inventory process because, you know, you talked about my grandfather. My grandfather, there was probably 3 or 4 different models in 2 sizes. And now if you come here, there's over 100 models on the floor, and I have a whole back room of different sizes of these bikes are on the floor. And because you fall in love with the orange bike doesn't mean the orange bike fits you. Doesn't mean the orange bike's for you at all. So back then it was a lot more simple versus today. But we're in a world where people are looking for a lot more performance. They're looking to do,
Do you find the choice somewhat paralyzes the customer? Like,
no,
there's
it
too
doesn't.
much?
Too much choice is always good, but back then there wasn't mountain biking, there wasn't triathlon. Road racing was a little bit of a thing, but it wasn't that much of a thing. People rode bikes because they needed to get somewhere. Let's not kid ourselves. Today, you have the guy who's commuting. You have the guy who's commuting but also rides on the weekend. You have the people who road bike. You have the people who road bike on gravel. You have the people who do triathlons. You have the people who do duathlons. You have the people who mountain bike. You have the people who, when they mountain bike, they only focus on going downhill, so they take the chairlift off. But then you have these guys who like to do the same downhills, who don't mind riding up the hill. Those are called enduro riders. Then you have the free riders, or guys going off cliffs. Then you got the cross country guys. And then there's another group of people who are like, well, we don't associate with any of these groups, so we want to be like the single track people. So all of a sudden, you took mountain biking, which was a thing 20 years ago, and it was just mountain biking, and you have 5, 6, 7, 8 different segments of mountain biking. And each segment has its own style bike. Because if you want to really be good at enduro riding, you need your bike to be set up this way, and you need to have a little bit more suspension, and you need to have 27.5 wheels if you want the bike to be more agile, or bigger wheels, 29-inch wheels if you just really want to plow through everything and focus on raw speed. It was just simpler times back then because it wasn't as evolved. It didn't break up into that many little sports yet. But
when a customer comes and see you,
yep.
I'm assuming if they're doing this professionally or competitively, is that more of the client that wants a fit test, or is also people that just on a personal level, even though they're not competitive?
Absolutely. So it's going to be two types of clients. So you're going to have the client who is going to be either a racer and his goal is to gain performance. And then you're going to have the recreational cyclist his goal is to increase comfort. And then you're going to have the serious recreational who's going to fall in between.
Okay.
He wants to be comfortable. He never wants to be in pain. But he also wants to make sure that on a Sunday ride, he can lay down the pain.
Okay.
To other people.
Yeah.
So those are the different groups. But like I said, it could be a hybrid. It could also be a commuter. If you are commuting from the West Island to Montreal by bike, you're doing 30K a day. Well, not 30K a day, 30K to go there, 30K to come back, 60K a day. You want to make sure you're comfortable. You want to make sure your bike's adapted for that type of riding.
Okay. And when we're talking about the type of customers you get, when they come to you, do you find that they're already, we talked about education a bit before for the fat bikes, but do you find that they already know what they want, or they're trusting you to give them what they need, basically?
Yeah. So that's a big question. So you have the people who come in and they read everything online and they know what they want. And then you have the people who...
But do they know what they want if they read everything online?
That's where I'm getting to. So you have the people who read online and they know what they want to come into the store. And then you have the people who read online, they realize it's way too confusing and they come into the store. So those are two different types of people. But then in that first group, you have the people who come in, they know what they want, but they don't need what they want. They need something else. They just have ideas. So what I tell my employees, it's always... ask questions, figure out who that customer is, figure out how they want to use their bike. So, are you commuting? Are you pulling a trailer with kids? Are you riding on the bike path? Are you a serious rider? Are you going to race? What do you aspire to do next year? So once you've confirmed that you're going to be a cyclist, what's your next year's goal after this year? How often are you going to ride a week? That's a big question. What kind of surfaces are you going to ride? Are you always going to be on the road, or are you going to go off-roading sometimes? And then after that, it's our job to narrow it down, the 90 to 100 bikes we have on the floor, narrow it down to 2 bikes for you, maybe 3. And if we ask all the right questions and you answer them truthfully, we're pretty good at narrowing it down.
Okay. And what happens on the customer experience standpoint when they tell you, oh, I want this, that's not really what they're going to end up doing with the bike, and they come back to you like, oh, I'm not as comfortable. Like, how do you deal? Like, that's the thing. It's
So
such
that's
it's such a specialized. Like, you guys are taking it such to a next level.
Yeah.
That to me, it's crazy the amount of specificity that you're actually going into.
It's just about creating that conversation though, and qualifying this customer into like, okay, so this customer is a mountain biker versus this customer wants a mountain bike but it's not going to mountain bike.
Okay.
You know, and it's asking more questions. You know, if I ask you if you're going to commute, I'm also going to ask you, are you going to ride your bike on days where you're not commuting? How long are those rides going to be? And once you've done all these goals, what's your next goal after that? Do you have an idea? So yeah, I want a bike pack. Okay, so if you want a bike pack next year and you're using commuting as your gateway into cycling, well, let's sell you a bike that can also bike pack next year, because you're not going to want to buy a second bike next year.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's, you know, in sales they call it probing.
Yeah.
It's all about that, and it's all building this relationship with this customer, where this customer will tell you everything about themselves and about how they use the bike. And same thing, mountain bikers, they come in and somebody buys their first mountain bike. Oh, I want a mountain bike. Okay, so how are you going to ride your bike? I don't know yet. I don't know mountain bike. So, you know, what kind of experience can we use to relate that to how they would probably use a mountain bike? You know, I'll ask them, do you ski? Sure. Describe me the type of skier you are. If they're really into the racing part, that's how they're probably going to want to ride their mountain bike. If they're really into the snow park, that's how they're going to want to ride their mountain bike as well. So that you're taking one experience and you're just saying, okay, so this is John. John likes to do jumps and rails at the snow park. John's probably going to like to do jumps on his mountain bike. I don't think he's going to be into the endurance marathon 24-hour race if that's not what he's into. But you know, obviously you can always get it wrong, but you know, we've been doing this a long time. That's our specialty. That's what we know. That's what we do. We rarely get it wrong.
So when you sell a bike,
Yep.
what are you, so the bike frame, I guess, lasts X amount of time, or how long will, and then what do you see as retaining that customer?
So
like
your
the
question
overall
is the
value?
life cycle of the customer, or life cycle of the bike?
Like, kind of both, because
Okay.
to me, like, I'm assuming what we talked about before, like, well, the customer might have a change, so he's moving into a condo, he can only have one bike now,
Yeah.
so you'll have that switch at one point.
So like the life cycle of the bike itself. So if we just talk about the maintenance, and that's something we're working really hard on educating people in the future, because we feel that's something that people don't fully realize, that their bike requires maintenance. But you know, you take any bike, every 2,500 kilometers, it should have a major tune-up. If it's a mountain bike, every 50 to 60 hours, you should have your suspension tuned. When I say tune, it could be depending on the type of riding, just, you know, take it apart, change the oil, re-grease the seals or change the seal if they're due, and put it back together, or a full overhaul, depending on the type of
So
rider.
we're talking about tuning to improve or to maintain performance?
To maintain
or
performance.
to maintain the actual, it doesn't break, basically, to maintain the
for
quality.
both.
Okay.
Both. So, you know, if you take a suspension, for instance, there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of seals, there's a lot of bushings, there's a lot of rubber O-rings, and there's oil. Your oil starts getting dirty, there's going to be a little bit of aluminum sheddings in there. What's going to happen? It's going to destroy all the rubber parts. When you destroy all the rubber parts, you start wearing out the bushings. When you start wearing out the bushing, you wear out the key parts of your fork, and then you bring in for service, and the guy tells you need a new fork instead. So it's both. So it maintains performance and also keeps the product lasting longer. So every 2,500 kilometers, every 6 months, every year, you should get, depending on the amount of riding you do, at least a basic, but every 2,500, a full tune-up. Every 5,000, or if you're a mountain biker, every year, a full overhaul, tear down. If you're serious about your sport, you know, if you want to keep your bike a long time, you should do a tear down. So your other question too is the life cycle of a customer and retaining a customer. So in the bike industry, we do a really poor job at selling service and getting that customer to come back. So it's not like the car industry or the motorcycle industry. Our percentage of return customer for service is very low in comparison to those industries. So what we're really working on going forward is improving our service department, but also improving our outreach to those customers. And we're setting the expectations also for servicing. So somebody comes in and buys a bike. We don't just sell them the bike, sell them accessories, tap on the back, here you go, have fun. Now we're showing them, and we're implementing this year. What's your basic safety check before you leave? How should you check your bike? So, check the brakes, check for looseness, check your chain, check for oil, check for noises. If you feel that anything is loose, anything rattles, everything makes a noise that you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel is normal, bring it back. Book an appointment right away. Talk to our service advisor. It may be nothing, it may be something very serious. It's a lot easier to fix the little problems than to fix big problems, but if you let little problems become big problems, that ends up being expensive. And some of the things we're doing with our service department is we're really working hard on having a 48-hour turnaround. Most shops, spring, you go to a bike shop, 2-3 weeks, people are not even surprised. When we tell them 48 hours, they're stunned. They're really stunned. We're also working on doing pickup and deliveries for repairs, and that's going to be a big part of this year is going to be picking up the repairs and delivering them. We're realizing that people are a lot busier than they used to be, and coming to a bike shop on some days it might be possible, but on other days it isn't. So instead of having a mobile unit, because I don't really think that you can fit all our expertise, all our parts, all the tools, sometimes just the input of someone else in the van, we figured it was much easier for us to pick it up, bring him to the shop. Sometimes I might have a tech who's better at doing this job than another tech. You give me the opportunity to give it to that faster tech for that type of job. You also bring in an environment where I have all the parts. You're bringing into an environment where we have more tools.
Yeah.
So
it's basically fully optimized to minimize letdowns.
Exactly. So we're bringing that mobile service, but we're making it more convenient for us at the same time. So we're combining both experiences.
Yeah, because if you come to my place and you try to fix it and you tell me after an hour, I gotta take it to the shop.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why didn't I just go there in the first place?
A lot of these mobile repairs don't even have a brick and mortar, so it's just the van. So if he tells you he doesn't have the part, he doesn't have the part.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have to go get it. So he's gonna have to come back, have to book another appointment. So I'm booking an appointment, pick it up, and an appointment to bring it back. It's simple. And
And even we're talking about the type of bikes and how specialized it can get. I'm assuming that once you have the people that have specific expertise to work on it, it's not like an everyday bike over here.
Exactly. And also the advantage of us offering 48 hours is key for us to bring in more service, but also it's a big challenge for us because especially in the spring, one shop can get a lot busier than the other shop. But us also an advantage of picking up and delivering the bikes is that if it's more convenient for me to bring a batch of bikes to the other store rather than bring it to the closer store, for the consumer it's the same experience. The bike got picked up, it got delivered, but I controlled the workflow.
Okay. And honestly, just from talking for you, it seems since we are a storytelling podcast, it seems that really your expertise and passion for it is really how you storytell your brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating how we just went into this. I know nothing about bikes, but I understood almost all the descriptions of what you're actually doing. Whereas when I go to my mechanic and he's explaining to me the problem, I have no idea what they're talking about. You know what I mean? You have such a fluidity of explaining it,
and that's one of the things that we work really hard making sure that all our staff is able to explain everything in terms that anybody can understand. And if we did not make it clear, we have to find another way of explaining it so that person can understand. This business today is built on relationships. Everybody is able to order something online today. So why do you come to the store? You come to the store because you want to talk to me. You want to talk to Steve. You want to talk to Frank. You want to talk to these guys, and you want to get not just their input, but also that they remember you. They're gonna ask about your last race, or they're gonna ask about your last bike trip because you told them that you're getting your bike ready for a trip to California. They're offering that experience, that personalized experience that the internet is just very cold. Buy now, click, 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 click. It's convenient, you get it home, but you don't talk to anybody. There's no more human interaction.
Even buying on Kijiji and used and stuff, it's hard. You don't realize until you get the bike. You're like, oh, my knee hurts when I'm biking, or I'm doing this, my right knee or my hip on my left side, And it's like,
Well, it's because you're just out of shape.
that's the-
I know you're giving an example there, you're just out of shape. It's, that's a different story.
But that's the importance of bike fitting, and that is something that we have a very high level of different packages for fittings, and we have a level that we offer with the purchase of a new road bike. That's we refer to as a sizing, so it's a basic fit, and we're just making sure that this customer is not leaving with a position that could potentially harm them. When you're buying a used bike and you're not going to the bike shop, let's say you're just saying, I don't want to spend the money for a new bike, I know I can get it cheaper used, you're not getting that expertise. So you don't know about these little things. So what happens is you end up buying that $1,000 bike for $500 or $600, and then you go for a few rides, you realize your knee hurts. You go to a bike shop, you ask them, why does my knee hurt? And they say, well, did you get it fitted? And you're like, what's that? And they tell you about the fit process. They're like, awesome, you book it. Then you go for your fit, and then the guy who does your fit does all your fit, changed a few things. You need a new stem. Maybe your saddle wasn't right or your pedals were wrong. So he changed a few things. He did the adjustments. Then looks at your bike and goes, did you know your tires were really worn out and you need a new chain? This bike has a lot of miles on it. Well, you didn't know how to assess it. So all of a sudden you have all these little problems that came up. And by the time you add all the price on all these little things, it's the same price as a new bike.
Yeah.
So it's just consumer education, and you don't get the education unless you go to the store.
So what do you do on a personal level to get people to come to your store, get people to realize the importance of the fit test or choosing a proper bike?
So I'm lucky because I took over a business that's been established since 1948 in a neighborhood where it's been since the 50s. So a lot of that education, a lot of stuff that you've talked about, my grandfather and my father have done the work for me. But what we're doing is we're working a lot more on a digital strategy to get people to know the brand. We work on branding ourselves. And then after that is the fitting, is the word of mouth. The more fits you're gonna do, the more you're gonna talk about it, the more you're gonna post pictures on Facebook or Instagram, mention it to people. And the more happy customers you're gonna have, the more people are gonna come and get that done.
Cool. Very cool. I'd like to know, we always end our podcasts on a funny note or a very personalized question.
Okay.
And the question I have for you is, if you could choose 3 people to fit on a bike in your shop,
3 people to
who
fit.
would those 2 people be?
It could be anybody, so that's not, I don't know. I fitted a couple of people.
I'll just give you, I've asked this question before, and it's you could choose a star, you could choose someone you admire, an athlete that you're following or whatnot.
So, I fitted a couple of athletes who've made it to the international racing scene on the various Canadian teams. I always love working with these people. So if I could fit anybody that is pro UCI team, I would really like the experience. I wouldn't, and I know these people always get fitted by teams, so there's not one fitter, it's a bunch of fitters that work in a team. And I know I would never be able to pull it off alone, but just to be able, and I'm not going to name you 3 people, I'd just be willing to work with it. I would love to work with a team and just go, okay, so we're going to go fit the Trek Factory racing team. All these other fitters are going to be there. This fitter focuses on aerodynamics. I'm going to focus on comfort. This other guy's going to focus on power. And the 3 of us, we're going to geek out and get this person to the optimum performance that they can reach. And then it's seeing the results, the race results after. You go, wow, I did this, and this person is performing, and then getting their feedback and saying, so how do you love the new bike? And they say, well, I didn't know my back wasn't supposed to hurt on the bike. And you're like, what do you mean you didn't know that? Well, I've always raced like that before, and I thought it was kind of normal, that lower back pain, and now I don't have it anymore, so it's great. And I've had that, but people have been racing a long time, and you're like, oh, this little twitch that I had before, I don't have that anymore, it's great. And you're like, that's not normal. Oh, I've had that for 10 years. So,
it's kind of, you make do for the sport, right?
Exactly. So that's the ultimate goal, and that's what I really after, rather than saying I fit this particular person, is to fit a person who's going to compete to a super high level, and then hearing a feedback like that, just saying I didn't know my lower back wasn't supposed to hurt. And you're like, you kidding me? You've been racing professionally for how long? And
Has this happened to you, by the way?
it's happened to me with somebody who is a strong triathlete, races internationally, did her fit, asked her a couple weeks later. So I never heard back, are you happy? She's like, oh, I'm really happy. My back doesn't hurt now. And it's somebody who's been racing since she's in her early teens. And I was like, what do you mean your back doesn't hurt? She's like, well, on all my previous bikes, my lower back always hurt. I thought it was normal. So to her it was normal. Her body was able to handle the pain threshold.
Yeah.
So that was not even weird.
But how much more distance can she do now? Endurance.
That's it. So she
Just
obviously
the mental game of not having to worry about ignoring the pain is.
So to me, that's the more the funner part. And I can't name you who's gonna give me that challenge, because even if I say give you names, you're just like you're doing an activity with someone at that point. I want to figure out a puzzle and have an impact on someone's life, and somebody who didn't know that I could have that impact on.
So you talk about, I was going to end another one. I have one more question now, because you just ended with the impact on someone's life. Now, how about you? What impacted you greatly from watching your father and your grandfather work? What's something that really just instilled in you?
Well, I didn't get to know my grandfather. My grandfather passed when I was 2 years old, so I unfortunately don't remember him. So the impact that my dad has had on me, it's some people call it work ethics, but it's work ethics. It's part work ethics, part work hard. It's part being an entrepreneur. It's part being able to wake up at 6:30 in the morning and do your emails first thing first, and then do your morning routine and do your emails again, and then drive to work and do your emails again, and then do that till it's about 10 o'clock at night when your marketing guy is still calling you and telling you, can you give me an inventory list of the bikes that are on sale? And it's this ongoing thing. And
They're very annoying people, the people that text at 10 o'clock at night.
It wasn't annoying as much as I did not have my computer or access to information that night, and you really wanted an answer. And I think you asked me this question 3 times, the same question 3 different ways. And I was like, I don't have the answer. I can't answer your question. I don't know by heart all the bikes that are on sale right now.
I love it.
That sounds like someone I wouldn't work with, honestly.
Yeah.
It sounds like someone I really wouldn't work with.
So you want to finish on a funny note? That's the funny note. If you call me at 10 in the morning, at 10 at night, and I tell you I don't have my computer with me, I don't have all the answers. I'm still gonna work. If I have the answer, I'll answer it, but I don't have all the answers.
Well, thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Pierre-Paul. I appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. It was awesome learning about bikes. I'm actually looking in the store at that orange black Modena bike.
Oh, that's a beautiful bike.
That looks cool. Don't look at it.
I want a
Don't
pink
look
though.
at it. You're gonna give him pink for sure.
We can make that happen.
There we go.
What you wish for.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
We hope you liked this week's episode, and if you'd like to reach out to us or just want to simply check out our previous episodes, visit our website, Montreal Marketeers, that's with 2 E's.com. You can also download our weekly episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Waiting for the bottle to come. I heard the Lord say, battle has just begun. I heard my daddy say, life isn't worth the fight. And we hear Molly say, everything will be alright.